This is Paul. Yeah, I was looking in here at without legal cause, without justification. A defendant frequently uses this phrase in a pleading when he denies the charges made against him. Then there's without recourse, a phrase used by a person who endorses a check, a note, or some other negotiable paper stating that he will not be responsible for payment if the party primarily liable does not pay. In other words, his endorsement is a qualified, limited one. Now, you would have thought without legal cause, as a defendant, I could have used that phrase in the pleading that would have denied the charges against me when I was arrested on January 4th of 2016 because there was no legal cause for the probable cause arrest. I was an INSQUIM on December 31st. Now, I know my public defender said, well, this is what the Constitution says, all right, and this protection order violates his constitutional rights, and there was no jurisdiction for the arrest, but apparently the public defender's office disagreed that since I'd received a protection order in a public library, where by default I was not allowed to go to court because there was no notice or summons to have to appear in court or have the choice to appear in court, that the court decided that I was just going to be the loser. I was never going to get my custody rights. I'd never get the Bill of Rights enforced. I'd never be able to file any lawsuits. I'd never be able to get my sons. And those that said they'd pay for this military operation would never have to pay for all the expenses of all the damages they've done to the population of the world. Now, I know when you talk about a check, certain people you don't think actually write checks. I mean, Bill Gates doesn't actually write a check, does he? He have his own signature. Well, I'd like to go through every signature of Bill Gates for the last 30 years and see if there's any forgeries. Bill didn't clone himself, did he? Popo. Doesn't have any fish twins. If you could get me every document that has Bill Gates' signature on it for the last 30 years, I just want to make sure, did his signature change over the last 30 years? Did he actually write any checks for the expenses of the world's militaries to have to try and clean up his decision making? Pow, pow. Now, I know Bill Gates is probably one of these types of businessmen that say, sure, I'll pay as long as you pay. That, it's one of these ideas that when you're a billionaire, I mean, when you're the world's wealthiest man, that you never actually have any expenses. It's almost like a justification. Well, I pay for whatever my expenses are as long as they pay for what their expenses are. And I know that Bill and Melinda Gates, in their decision making, probably haven't paid anything. Did you get every signature of Melinda Gates for the last 30 years on every document that she's ever signed? Oh, and I know I mentioned William Gates, the father of all cloning. It's not like he would have cloned his own family, his grandchildren, distant relatives. I just wanted to get every signature of William Gates Sr. See, there's Junior Bill. Now, some of this technology has been the actual result of billionaires just having so much money that they decided we all needed an itchy, scratchy computer system in our nervous systems. Now, I'd read a book once where he thought it was a grand idea putting a computer in the spines of every citizen so that all we'd have to do is itch or scratch ourselves and we'd be able to communicate with a computer system. It was actually in one of his books, A Road Less Traveled. No, that's a different one. Something about a road. It was a highway. I remember reading it in a secondhand store. Yep, he remembers reading it. Now, some technologists thought that it was a good idea turning the human body into a type of, well, touchscreen, pixelated. Could I go through every pixel of every screen that Bill and Melinda Gates have ever owned and every computer they themselves have ever had ownership of? I'm sure that having been the guy that started Microsoft, one of the world's largest, in fact, I remember it, 90% of the world's computers have their operating system. Pow! Did you get every pixel of every screen of every computer that has Microsoft's operating system? You'd be surprised how big some of these supercomputers are. Does the Gates family own a computer of their own? I once told him, I said, well, go to Walmart and buy one of those $350, $400 computers, the laptops that they sell at Walmart. I could run all of Microsoft on a laptop from Walmart. But for some reason, how's it going, Robert? Those in technology think they need a bigger supercomputer. Now, I just want to know every piece of technology that Bill and Melinda and Grandpa Gates have owned for the last 40 years. Seem like their super top secret labs and all their cloned employees and all the fish that they've been employing for the last 40 years has caused a real ruckus among those that are just regular old citizens.